Great Liberal lies. The budget will balance itself, and the rebate check is larger than the cost of the carbon tax. Everyone knows that is not actually what's happened. And you know who else has joined the carbon tax revolt? 6 premiers in this country who are calling for a carbon tax summit. Newfoundland and Labrador, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Ontario, Saskatchewan, and Alberta. Will this out-of-touch Prime Minister actually call this conference the Carbon Tax Summit, or is he too busy hiding because he called the premiers liars?
Look, on this side of the House, we actually believe in facts and we believe in science. The honourable member makes statements that actually have zero basis in fact. 200 economists in this country signed a letter last to 2 weeks ago saying that 8 out of 10 Canadians get more money back. The Parliamentary Budget Officer says that 8 out of 10 Canadians get money back. They can make up all of the things that they want to, but the facts are on our side. It is an issue that addresses affordability for Canadians, particularly those on modest incomes. It is a plan to address climate change. Those reckless, irresponsible Conservatives on the other side of the House should be ashamed.
This Liberal government is completely out of touch with ordinary Canadians who can't feed their families with phony Liberal photo ops. Canadians are already lining up at the food banks in record numbers, and increasing the carbon tax on farmers and food is only making things worse. 70% of Canadians want this government to axe the tax, and half a dozen premiers are demanding an emergency meeting on the carbon tax crisis. So will the Prime Minister stop hiding and hold a carbon tax conference with the premiers and listen to their plans to axe the tax?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again, I would implore the Conservatives in opposition to actually use facts when they actually make statements. 200 economists in this country have validated the fact that the carbon price is the most efficient way to reduce emissions and is done in a manner that is affordable. When Premier Moe actually came before the committee a couple of weeks ago, journalists actually called the statements that he was making, which are the same as what this fellow is making, a parade of nonsense and completely dishonest. I totally agree.
After 8 years of this Prime Minister, Canadians are struggling to put food on the table. Food banks received a record 2 million visits in a single month last year alone, and a million more Canadians are expected to visit food banks again this year. The carbon tax is driving up the cost of groceries and everything else. Struggling families are desperate for relief in next week's budget. So, Mr. Speaker, will the Prime Minister axe the carbon tax on farmers so the food prices can go down?
Once again, the honourable member is saying things that are devoid of facts, and in fact, what she is proposing will actually take money away from folks who live on modest incomes. 8 out of 10 families get more money back than they pay in the price on pollution, and it works directly inverse to income. It's those people that live on most modest incomes that would be most impacted by their plan to cut the carbon rebate. That is reckless, that is irresponsible, and it puts at risk people who live in this country on modest incomes.
Last week's carbon tax hike is driving up the cost of gas, groceries, and home heating. Families are struggling, like I said, to put food on the table, and they cannot afford higher costs. Next week's budget must take the foot off the gas of the rising grocery prices. So once again, Mr. Speaker, will the Prime Minister axe the tax on farmers and make food more affordable for Canadians?
I would suggest to my honourable colleague across the House, who is from the great province of Saskatchewan, that she go and have a conversation with Dr. Brent Dolter at the University of Regina, who has said 8 out of 10 Canadian families get more money back, and it's those that actually live on modest incomes that do the best on a net benefit basis. It is an affordability program, but it is also a program to address the climate crisis, which imperils the future of our children. The fact that these folks have zero plan to address the climate issue and they don't seem to care at all about it is reckless, and it is irresponsible.